Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third talk in our Alumni at Home with Mac webinar series. My name is Jessica Lounsbury, and on behalf of the Office of Alumni Engagement, I'd like to thank you for joining us to hear from Dr. Rachael Finnerty, a McMaster grad, registered psychotherapist, and credentialed music therapist, who will be discussing how music therapists harness the power of melodies to achieve a wide range of healthcare goals. Before I begin, I would like to take this time to recognize that McMaster campus is currently on the traditional territory shared between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe Nations, which was acknowledged in the Dish with One Spoon wampum belt. That wampum uses the symbolism of a dish to represent the territory and one spoon to represent that the people are to share the resources of the land and only take what they need. We always start our webinars with a land acknowledgement because it's important to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this land and the history that they share with this land as a step towards reconciliation. Just a reminder that this talk is being recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording of tonight's talk, as well as links to our next At Home with Mac events within the next few hours following our webinar. Thank you to all who pre-submitted questions during the registration process. If you have any questions for Dr. Finnerty, please feel free to type it in the Ask a Question section on your screen. We'll have some time at the end to answer a few. It is now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker this evening, Dr. Rachael Finnerty. Rachael is recognized as both a registered psychotherapist and a credentialed music therapist. She has been working in private practice since 2001 and has worked in hospital settings, long-term care facilities, and a private studio, initiating over 30 new music therapy programs throughout the GTA. Rachael served as the president of Music Therapy Association of Ontario from 2010 to 2014 and was the recipient of the YWCA Women of Distinction Award for Healthcare in 2015. A passionate educator, she brought 2 music therapy courses to McMaster University in 2010, currently educating over 5,000 students each academic year. To provide further education to the community and healthcare professionals in the Music Therapy Academy was launched in 2016. As an advocate for mental health and well-being, Rachael has completed a PhD in psychology, neuroscience, and behavior at McMaster University with Dr. Laurel Trainer. The focus of her research is proactive wellness, managing stress and anxiety through music therapy. So without further delay, please welcome our guest speaker this evening, Dr. Rachael Finnerty.
Thank you, Jessica, so much for the introduction. And I'm really pleased to be here with all of you this evening. Here we go. I'm really pleased to be invited to speak about music and your health, a harmonious journey. My name is Rachael. Let's get started. As per the description for this talk, it seems that you are interested in music therapy and how to use music with intention and purpose to enhance your mental and physical well-being. So we will start with an understanding of what music therapy is, followed by a brief review. I wanted to share a piece of my PhD research as it touches upon the use of music therapy to help manage stress and anxiety, as well as music for mental and physical health, music for cognition, and then we will finish up with music activities for wellness. So as mentioned, I'm going to be speaking with you through the lens of a frontline worker, as a music therapist and psychotherapist, as well as an educator and a researcher. So let's begin with a definition of music therapy. So you've probably heard this term and you might be familiar with it. Perhaps you've met a music therapist, or perhaps you are more familiar with the use of music therapeutically. But the term music therapy actually is referring to a healthcare profession, and music therapists are regulated by the Canadian Association of Music Therapists, which was established in 1974. And music therapy is defined as the use of music that is facilitated by a credentialed music therapist meaning they've met the mandates of the Canadian Association of Music Therapy. And they use music specifically to reach healthcare goals. And they use music listening as well as the playing of instruments, improvising, lyric analysis, and songwriting as ways to reach different healthcare goals. The individual, the client, or the patient does not need any background in music in order to participate or benefit from music therapy. So what is the difference between music therapy and therapeutic use of music? And I want to highlight that everybody should use music therapeutically. Music has so many healthcare benefits, which we're going to talk about this evening. But it is different from music therapy, which is facilitated by a credentialed music therapist. And to be a credentialed music therapist, you do need to be a proficient musician who has completed a bachelor's or a master's specifically in music therapy, as well as a 1,000-hour internship and an exam. Once all of these components have been completed, then you can submit these to the Canadian Association of Music Therapy, our regulating body, to become MTA or music therapist accredited. So music therapists work with all different age groups and diagnoses. And so, for example, music therapists work with people who have been diagnosed with dementia. Music, you may have seen, there's been some really great videos around how music can evoke memory, can evoke abilities that appear to have otherwise been taken by dementia. Also, working with individuals with an acquired brain injury. Even though a part of the brain is damaged for speech, often the part of the brain responsible for singing is still intact and healthy and can be accessed for speech rehabilitation. Also work with individuals in cancer care for pain management. So the pathway, our neural pathways for pain are actually very similar to our neural pathways for music. So they have to compete with one another. So that's one aspect around how music can be used to help manage pain. And another is that music can help to elevate mood. And when we have elevated mood state, we tend to perceive pain as less. Also in Parkinson's disease, one symptom is gait, so how one is walking. And we can use music with a regular beat to help to regulate and facilitate gait and to help strengthen, because Parkinson's is going to be continually, there's no cure, but we can help to support gait and movement with music. We can also use music with individuals with mental health goals, such as stress and anxiety. We're going to talk about that a bit more today, as well as individuals who are autistic. We can use music to help facilitate communication goals. So for example, the music therapist may play or improvise a piece of music, let's say even on the drums, and then an individual who is autistic can respond on the drums. And this dialogue, this musical dialogue back and forth can help to practice social skills and communication. As well as music therapists also work in the neonatal intensive care units. And so one example is for feeding. So infants can learn, so there's like pacifiers. And when they suck on the pacifier, music is played. And this is music that can be curated with the music therapist and the family members with a mother's voice, for example. And the infants learn that when they suck on this pacifier, it's a special music pacifier that some NICUs have. And in collaboration with the music therapy and the families, creating the music, and the infants learn that when they suck on the pacifier, the music begins. And when it stops, the music stops. So they learn to suck on it, which builds the muscles. which then helps them for feeding, which means they then increase their body weight, which means they can go home, which is what, what we want, nice, healthy babies going home. So these are just a few examples of different age groups and diagnoses that music therapists work with, and some specific goals that the music therapist might be working towards. So memory, speech, pain management, etc. And I do apologize, my slides are moving by themselves, so I do apologize for that. I'm trying to gain control of them. So I want to take a moment to share with you how music can be used to proactively manage stress and anxiety. As shared, I've worked as a music therapist since 2001 and worked in many different health settings and age groups. And I observed there to be a gap in our healthcare system to encourage individuals to proactively engage in mental health interventions to help with stress and anxiety. And there's a big gap in the literature. So in 2019, I went back to school to help fill that gap and conduct this research. And I just want to highlight, what do I mean when I say proactively engage? Well, when you think about physical health, we have normalized activities to proactively manage our physical health. So it has become normalized. There's no negative stigma about going and playing basketball or going for a swim, eating well. In fact, society will applaud you. They're like, oh, you did that workout. That's great. Good for you. Oh, you've cut something out of your diet and eating more healthy. That's excellent. And as a result, we as a society are proactively engaging in our physical health. But when it comes to mental health, let me ask you, what are the activities that society applauds you to engage in to manage your mental health? Typically, people wait until they're in crisis to reach out for help, to engage in therapy, for example. And as such, the annual economic cost for mental illness in Canada is estimated at over $50 billion a year. Now, stress is not all bad. I do want to, when I'm talking about managing stress, I'm not talking about getting rid of stress. That's really important. Because stress helps us get up in the morning. Stress can help us focus, help us to drive, keep our eyes on the road, in a bad weather. We need some stress to get through difficult times. But too much stress can physically harm us. It can get in the way of concentration. It can affect cholesterol levels. It can affect our digestion. So we need to manage it. Now, when it comes to music, there have actually been 104 randomized controlled trials about the effects of music on stress-related outcomes. And we have seen significant outcomes in managing the physiological and psychological outcomes of stress. 47 randomized controlled trials have been conducted for music therapy for stress reduction. And again, significant outcomes for physiological and psychological stress outcomes. In the music therapy studies, however, there wasn't any biomarker data. The physiological data was heart rate and heart rate variability. So in the study I'm going to speak to you about, we did collect cortisol. So I share this with you to say there is research out there supporting the use of music to manage stress and anxiety. But this is the first one looking at it proactively and specifically with undergraduate students. So I just wanted to share with you that we did randomly assign 148 students to either a music therapy group or a control group. And those in the music therapy group, they engaged in music listening. They did song shares, so different music that they listened to during times of stress or that they found helpful. They engaged in lyric analysis, so looking at the lyrics of the song. What's going on in this? What's the messaging? How is it helpful in managing stress and anxiety, for example? They engaged in songwriting, improvising, so the playing of instruments, as well as singing. Now, a lot of people ask, well, what kind of music should one listen to reduce stress or anxiety? What kind of music is going to have specific impacts? So in this group, for example, what was the magic music? And the reality is, unfortunately, there's no such thing as a music prescription. It would be so fantastic if there was. You imagine if somebody were to come to the therapist and state the various challenges they were having and their symptoms, and the music therapist could say, okay, 5 minutes of Mozart, followed by 7 minutes of John Denver, and you're going to be fantastic. So in reality, the kind of music that is going to have the most impact is the music of preference of that individual. And so that may be music with lyrics. It might be music without lyrics. It might be ambient music. It could be classical. It could be rap. It could be whatever that person connects to. So, I just, want to share that. And then in regards to this study where the undergraduate students participated in music therapy, we collected information about stress and anxiety before and after each music therapy session. And we collected information about their state anxiety, where we saw a significant reduction, as well as self-rated stress. And again, we saw a significant reduction, both with a large effect size. And we also collected data in the first week and the 6th week of the study. So just as a reminder, the students participated in 6 weeks of music therapy, or if they were in the control, it was 6 weeks of student life as usual. And as you can see, for the state anxiety, we had a significant reduction in state anxiety in the music therapy group in comparison to the control, which was significant with a large effect size. And with self-rated stress, again, we see greater reduction in the self-rated stress in comparison to the control group, again, with a large effect size. And we also asked students to complete a perceived stress scale in week 1 and 6. And again, you see this significant reduction in the music therapy group in comparison to the control with a medium effect size. And we also collected hair samples from the participants to be analyzed for cortisol. And here you again can observe a significant reduction in the music therapy group in comparison to the control group, with a small effect size. And for those of you who are not familiar with hair sampling for cortisol, what's really cool is that in your hair, it does collect cortisol. And cortisol is a biomarker of stress. And the first centimeter of growth from the scalp can be analyzed for the average release of 4 weeks worth of cortisol. And that's what we did. We analyzed 1 centimeter from the scalp, and that would tell us our average release of cortisol prior to the study starting. And then we took a second sample, and that told us what was the average release of cortisol during the study period. All right. So why music? Well, in this case particularly, when we're talking about engaging undergraduate students in proactive wellness, it needs to be something they want to engage in. And music is like putting the broccoli in the brownie. You get all the goodness of the brownie, or all the goodness of the broccoli, but all the tastiness of the brownie. And the reality is, just like food, we can show all the nutrition, all the nutritious value of broccoli. But if we want to feed a group of people and we want to encourage them to eat healthy, we need to give them choices of healthy foods. We can't just put broccoli on the table and expect that everyone's going to eat broccoli. And it's the same when we think about what we offer in our mental health offerings, particularly on campus. We need to offer not only the therapies that we know are great, like CBT is fantastic, and engaging in other verbal-based group therapies is really wonderful and effective, but we need to draw in the students. We need to offer something they want to participate in, and students are, of course, naturally already engaging in music. All right, so now I want to move on to how music impacts our physical and mental health. And as I am presenting this information about music and physical and mental health, I want to highlight that these two concepts, physical health and mental health, are the same. When we are talking about our physical health, it, of course, is impacting our mental health and vice versa. They are completely intertwined. And music impacts both of these pieces. We can't pull them apart. And so, for example, if we are experiencing stress, this is an emotional experience, we tend to package this as a mental health aspect. But the reality is when we are having this mental health experience of stress, this emotion, it is having a physical impact on our body. It's impacting our heart. It's impacting our digestion. It's impacting our hormonal balance. So they are completely intertwined. And music does affect cortisol, as per the study I shared with you with the undergraduate students. Music also impacts our mood, and it does that by elevating dopamine and serotonin. If we're listening to music we like. So when we're enhancing mood, we have an increase of dopamine and serotonin. And just as an example of how effective music is in eliciting emotions and impacting our mood, I'd like you to take a moment and think about a movie if we took out the music. Imagine a love scene, a romantic kiss without the music. Just wouldn't have the same appeal. Or imagine a scary movie where somebody's walking down a dark alley, but there's no scary music. It just doesn't have the same impact. So music is having an impact on our emotions, right? So that is through the release of hormones. Additionally, our body, our heart rate, for example, and our breathing, it entrains to the environment around us. So if we have music in the environment with a regular beat, we will entrain to that. And this is a trick that music therapists use in the NICU. So just going back to the neonatal intensive care unit. So music therapists with their guitar, for example, and the infant is all connected to the heart monitor. And using the heart monitor, the music therapist will start to play music to the same beat of the heart. And that heart, prior to the music, will be quite irregular. And so in discussion with the doctor and the healthcare team, there would be an optimal heart rate that the music therapist would play the music to, and then the heart rate starts to change, starts to become more regular. The breathing becomes more regular. And the deeper the breathing, the more oxygen saturation, which is healthy for the brain. We can also use music to help with relaxation and for sleep. And of course, that's going to have a positive physical impact. Additionally, when we listen to music, without us even having any conscious effort, music impacts our motor cortex. So you could be listening to music and without even realizing it, you're tapping your foot or moving your hand or bopping your body. And we just do that. Nobody teaches us how. You didn't need to take a dance class. You didn't need to take a how to move to music class because your body just knows. Your body, your brain, when it hears music and it hears the beat, it moves. And music therapists can use that to help facilitate various symptoms post-stroke. as I mentioned, for Parkinson's with gait, as well as range of motion and fine motor skills. And one of the reasons why music is so effective in impacting our physical and mental health is that it engages all parts of our brain. So when we listen to music, the motor cortex is evoked, it gets excited. Our limbic system gets excited, so that's the hormones and the emotions. Our memory is engaged, both long-term and short-term memory are engaged in music. And our speech centers are engaged when we are engaged in music. All right, so I just want to take a moment and shift gears now from the physical and mental health aspects to cognitive health. So I invite you to think about how you learned the alphabet. Were you one of those smart kids who learned all the letters all at once? Or were you in that class that learned them 5 letters at a time? I'm going to guess that you were in the class that learned all the letters at the same time. And the reason is because your teacher, of course, taught you all of those letters by using a song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And imagine learning all those letters as a 3, 4, 5-year-old without a melody. Not possible. Or at least if it is, very laborious. So just as an example, when we have a melody, our brain is more able to hold that information and also retrieve it later. Also, if you think about how you learned counting or concepts around counting, in kindergarten, for example, or nursery school, we learn songs like 5 little ducks went out one day over the hills and far away. Mother duck said, quack, 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 but only 4 little ducks came back. So we learn concepts through singing. And this happens as children. And for some reason in Western culture, as we get a little older, it kind of gets to be not cool to learn through music. And for some reason, we stop using this fantastic tool. But our brain is still wired to learn through music. So I have seen, for example, songs made of the periodic table. And so some people are still engaging in that, but it's not the norm, whereas it is the norm for children. And in recognizing how, what a great tool music is for teaching concepts to children. Also, music in regards to cognition, we can use music to access memory because so many of our memories are paired with music. So if you think of childhood memories, there's often some kind of songs, music. If you used to take a road trip, perhaps there was certain pieces of music that were played in the car. If you used to go camping, maybe there were certain songs played when you went camping. Songs played at your wedding or at a best friend's wedding. And so many monumental life events are paired with music. And hence those memories are paired with music. And when we bring those melodies to the forefront, they often elicit the memories that were paired with them. I also want to highlight that there are just so many areas responsible for music that it provides us more opportunities to tap in and to our cognitive ability. So even if an area of the brain is damaged from an acquired brain injury, from stroke, for example, we can tap into the healthy areas of the brain to access music abilities for rehab, for example, or even for communication through music. Because again, often music abilities remain intact because they're dispersed throughout the brain. And that's why often in dementia care, music is such an incredible tool to access healthy areas of the brain and to reconnect with our loved ones. So just as an example of using a pre-composed piece of music and cognition. So for example, if I was to do this, when the night has come and the land. So what's going on for you right now? I'm going to guess that for many of you, you either are singing in your mind the rest of the music phrase, or you sang the rest of the music phrase out loud. Because what happens is our brain likes to predict, and music is such a great predictive tool. And so our brain knows what comes next. And if we don't resolve it, there's this incredible motivation within the brain to resolve it. So when music therapists work with individuals for speech rehabilitation, we can use this tool as a way to help with speech, because this motivation is often very intact to complete melodies. So we can sing together and pause and use these pauses to help facilitate speech and communication. Okay. So as we begin to wrap up, I want to leave with you some activities for wellness. So first of all, I'm going to guess that many individuals here this evening do listen to music in one way or another. And what I would like to invite you to do is to listen to music with intention. And what I mean is pick music based on a specific mood. Is there a mood that you are wanting to specifically feel? You can use music to evoke that. When listening to music, tap into the beats of that music for breathing. Of course, choosing a piece of music that is good to breathe to. So thinking about your music choices, depending if you want to help to facilitate breathing or mood. And the other is when listening to music to think about the lyrics. Often we are drawn to a song, not only due to the melody, but also the lyrics. And sometimes we're not even conscious of the lyrics. I don't know about you, but I've listened to some songs over and over and over again and never even realized what half the lyrics were until they were pulled up for some reason or other. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that's what that song is about. And so this is where I'm talking about the pieces of music that you seem to be drawn to. Take a moment and look at the lyrics. Are the lyrics perhaps saying something that you need to hear, something you want to hear? Or perhaps the lyrics are saying something that you need or want to say. So they can be quite revealing. We can use music as a way to gain insight to our own needs, our own thoughts, our own feelings. And if that's an exploration that you want to do, I invite you to use music for that self-exploration. Additionally, you could make a playlist, which is like an autobiography. So a playlist of your life. And I think this is pretty cool in that you can have a playlist that represents your childhood years, represents your perhaps your early career years, music that represents your fishing trips, whatever it might be that's specific to you. This is your life. This is your playlist. It's a little bit like a photo album, but instead of photos, you're sharing the music that accompanied your life. I also invite you to think about making a playlist based on specific mood. And again, we tend to think about music to be happy or, oh, music makes me feel good. But I also want to highlight that one of the really unique aspects of music is that it is able to encompass every single human emotion. even the emotions we don't have any words for, even several emotions at the same time, music can evoke. And sometimes we as humans need to express those emotions. We need to feel those emotions, and music can help us to do that. So for example, if one is grieving, we can give ourselves permission to feel all the feels, and perhaps listen to music that makes us not feel super happy, but actually makes us cry and makes us feel in our grief or in our sadness. The trick is to move through it, right? So we're not going to listen to that playlist on repeat all day long. Okay, that is not healthy. But for moments of time, feeling some sadness, if that's something we need to process, we can help ourselves to do that with music. And then to help us move from that, we can then have music that is more around grief and sadness, and then move into hope, move into the light, move into something more positive. So we can use music to help transition different emotional states. And that's a beautiful part of being human, and feeling alive is feeling all the emotions. Despite what some of you may think, we all can sing. If you can speak, you can sing. Just like if you can walk, you can run. Just because you can't run fast doesn't mean you can't run. Just because you're not singing like Taylor Swift doesn't mean you can't sing. Again, this is a Western society stigma. We've boxed people into musicians and non-musicians, singers and non-singers. Reality is, if you're human, you sing. And I encourage you to do that. You don't have to be on a stage, you don't have to be a performer, but just sing. It increases your oxygen saturation, it elevates your mood, it does so many fantastic, healthy things for you, even if it's just in the shower, in the car, or wherever. And as well, if you wanted to learn an instrument, this is an amazing activity for wellness. Again, you don't have to learn to play to perform. You can learn 3 chords on a guitar and play so many songs. Even with drumming, joining a drum circle, there's so many ways one can engage in playing an instrument without the stress of learning an instrument. So it's okay to cheat. It's okay to use letters on the keys of a piano. I don't know why we're so hard on ourselves, thinking there's only one way to learn an instrument. Not at all. What matters is you're doing it, and that's fantastic. If you do already play an instrument, then I invite you to improvise if you don't already. This is an incredible way to engage in wellness and creativity. So not worrying about playing a wrong note, not worrying about the score, but just playing freely is an incredible feeling of freedom. Anyone can join a choir. So again, for singing, and if it's an intergenerational choir, even more health benefits, because now we have all the benefits of music, but we also have the benefits of intergenerational engagement and community. And that's one of the other great things about engaging in music for wellness, is we can pull in community, which has like even further health benefits. And then just 2 more to mention here. One is using, so instead of like a book club, having music club, where you come together and talk about music. This is such a great way to keep ourselves cognitively stimulated, build relationships with others. It's an endless topic, and you don't have to read a book. I'm just kidding. I'm sure we all love reading books. I do love reading. But it's really easy to do the music listening before going to music club and speaking about the music. And lastly, this is similar to the playlist or using music with intention, but if you pair music that you like, music that you find relaxing, music that would help you breathe deeply and slowly for sleep, If you do that regularly, but you only use that music at that specific time, then you can train your brain to know that when it hears that music, it's time to shut down. It's time to breathe. It's the end of the day. We're going to bed. That's not going to happen after the first or second time. It's, takes some time to to train the brain to recognize this music is in preparation for this. But as an example, your brain has already been trained. So for example, if you think about any TV show, just before it finishes, there's usually a piece of music that starts to play just before the end of the episode. So your brain is getting prepared for the fact that, oh, we're getting to the end, and it's, the end of the episode. Music is used like that in many, it's often used as a cue of something about to happen. So just to say it's not that far off to say you can use it as a cue also for sleep. Okay, so in summary, if you don't use it, you lose it. I'm sure you've all heard this phrase before, and music is such a great way to use it. Use your brain, use all parts of your brain. It's an excellent exercise for the brain, is engaging in music, and you can do that passively, even listening to music. You don't have to play an instrument to have the effects. You can also engage in listening, receptively engage in music in order to engage the whole brain and exercise it. Engaging in music does enhance as well as assist and maintain cognition, movement, and our physical mental health. And everyone can engage in music. Also, just to go back full circle to the start of our talk, just a reminder that music therapists are regulated healthcare practitioners who are trained to use music to facilitate healthcare goals. And music therapists use music, as outlined in this talk, to reach many different healthcare goals. So I'd like to take this moment to thank you for your time this evening. Feel free, please, to send me an email. You can check out my website or follow me on social media. I've added my handles here, and I look forward to answering your questions.
That's wonderful, Rachel. Thank you so much. When you were just talking about cueing, I kept thinking of all the upcoming awards ceremonies when they
Right?
cue the speeches when they're getting too
Yes.
long. So that's what first thing that came to my mind. Just a reminder, if you have a question for Dr. Finnerty this evening, please please type it in the Ask a Question section. It should be just below the screen on most people's devices. And I had a few questions come in already. So I'll just start with, and you briefly, oops, sorry, just one second. There we go. You briefly touched on it in your talk already, but someone is asking, are there any specific or special techniques that you use when working with cancer patients? Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So it depends what their specific healthcare goal is. So for some individuals, so I know many music therapists who are working in, so you mentioned cancer patients, but I'm not sure if you are speaking specifically to palliative care or pain management. So I'll just touch base on both. And so if somebody does have a terminal illness, then in regards to music therapy, songwriting is often an intervention that is used. So the music therapist may work with the individual to write a song that is a reflection of the person's life and a way for them to share with their loved one things they want to say or things about themselves. Because engaging in conversation can be so heavy and difficult, whereas sharing a song can give all the same information and communicate all the same things, but in a way that's easier to hear and easier to share. So the songwriting is one. And then the other is the music listening. So for pain management. So using music as a way to, it really ultimately is a distraction from the perception of pain. So those are two of the main goals or and interventions used, but it could be so many more as well. So there could be group sessions with family members, again, depending on what it is they're specifically looking to achieve.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you had mentioned at the top of your talk as well that the pathways for pain are often the same as pathways for music. So, you just touched on that there. So that's very interesting, something I didn't know. So that was fascinating to learn this evening. Someone is asking or saying they're thinking of initiating an experimental sing-along at the church where they're an active member and lead a laughter yoga weekly group. They've been writing some updated words for well-known favorite hymns that speak to seniors in today's world. Do you have any guidance to offer? How important are words? Indigenous groups use chants that are not always words to offer. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, and congratulations to you on such a wonderful initiative. That's really fantastic. And so if one is using words, then yes, they are very important. But if one doesn't use words, that's okay. So if you are going to use the words in a song, I say the most important thing is to gain feedback from the people from whom the music is for. So if you're writing a song, if I understood correctly, for people in the church group, then I would have them contribute to the lyrics, or at least the themes and the emotions. What is it that they want to hear in the piece of music? So they can have some autonomy and it really is their song. If you choose not to have any words at all, that's okay also. It comes down to what's the intent of the use of the piece of music. So obviously, if we were wanting them to sing, then there'll need to be some word. Well, I guess you could chant, like you said, and that brings people together. So even chanting brings community, brings people together, and can be very, very powerful. So either or is good, but if you are using words, I think what's important is to get the feedback from the people who are going to be singing those words.
Okay, great. Our next question, someone is saying, in my father's final years, suffering from aphasia, we discovered that listening to specifically Baroque music helped. What is it about Baroque music that helps cognitive function?
Yes. So I'm not sure if there are any studies that um, that support Baroque specifically has a particular effect. But I think in your dad's case, a couple of things. One is that we would have to assume he liked it. If he didn't like Baroque music, it would have gone not as positive. And I think, anybody here this evening can understand. So for example, let's say there was a paper that came out that said, music by Dolly Parton is the best music to help with pain perception. And now let's just say you can't stand country music, and on top of that, you can't stand Dolly Parton. It doesn't matter how many papers are published on how great her music is on that. You probably aren't going to get the benefits because you just don't, it brings you in a different mood because you don't like it. So first and foremost, it's the preference of the person. So I think that Baroque music must have been something that your dad enjoyed. And then, but in addition to that, there is a steady beat to it. And I can imagine that steady, predictable beat can be very calming for people. It can, because it's predictable, it feels safe. And I can imagine those aspects of that music can have a lot of positive outcomes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. The next question is, why is music so hardwired into humans?
Mm-hmm. So we definitely have an affinity toward music. And there are many theories, evolutionary theories about this. Personally, I think they're all true. They all seem to have validity. But so, for example, with music, it is a way that when we're in large groups as humans, so if you go back in time, and as humans, we had to work as in groups to labor, right? It's through music that we can labor together, right? So if you're digging and you're digging together, you're walking and you're walking together, you think about soldiers marching to music. It is the most effective way to gain order in a large group. So there's that aspect. Also, in tribes, like a groups of people, historically, if you would have the same kind of music, it would be a way to know these are my people. This is safe. Being in, because it's that would be a mark, right? A marker of safety and familiarity. Additionally, using music helps with, or is thought to help with speech development. And so as individuals who are, as a species who communicates, like through vocalizing, not necessarily through the words we use today, but vocalizing, we vocalize, and then through music, vocalizing is a form of communication. So there's so many different, and the other is around when we do music together, it also elicits oxytocin. And oxytocin is a hormone that helps us feel trust with one another. And with trust, we are going to do things with our group, and then we can protect one another. And it's like a survival, right? So music has a lot of survival aspects to it. Some people today will say, I can't live without music. But historically, it actually could save people's lives by bringing people together, because it's survival through groups, survival through trust, and survival through moving together.
Yep, that's wonderful. Thank you. Can you please discuss or touch on the current research concerning music therapy as treatment for dementia? Perhaps some ideas as to why this technique has not been more widely publicized and used in long-term care settings.
Yes. So there is a lot of really great research and around the use of music therapy and the use of music to help with cognition and to support symptoms of dementia. And there's even been going on for a few years now where they are doing multi-sites across the world, like across Europe anyways, multi-sites, gathering data about the impact of music therapy. So there's no shortage of research that recognizes that it can help to elevate mood, which helps manage symptoms of dementia. It can help to access memories, which also helps to support mood, which also helps to alleviate symptoms of dementia. It also, when mood is enhanced, it also helps to facilitate care and feeding, which of course are all really important parts of maintaining health when somebody is struggling with, or has been diagnosed with dementia. Why is it not more widely implemented? That is a great question. So many long-term care centers in Canada do have a music therapist, but they are limited in their hours. So many of them are there for maybe 4 hours a week or 12 hours a week, and there's 300 residents that live there. So all that to say, it is coming. We do see music therapists in many long-term care centers now. It is more regular, but they are not full-time, and they're not part of the regular healthcare team. And this is a problem. It really is. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a music therapist. Obviously, I'm biased, but I mean, looking at the research and seeing the impact it has on quality of life, knowing that the abilities of an individual can be accessed through music despite dementia, and knowing that pharmaceutical drugs are not 100% successful in managing symptoms. Pharmaceuticals are great. They have a place, but they're not, they're also not a full, like they're not, they're not managing the symptoms 100%, and there are side effects. No side effects to music. So we just need more advocacy, and more education, and so that the government will put more funding dollars so that music therapists are part of the full-time healthcare team in long-term care facilities.
Just on that note too, we had another question that kind of ties in. Someone's asking if there are music therapists at all Hamilton hospitals, if you are aware.
Right. So no, not at all. Hamilton Health at all of the hospitals. There is a music therapist at McMaster Children's, and there was a music therapist for over 20 years at St. Joe's Hospital with the inpatients, mental health inpatients, and they let that after 20 years, they cut the program. Even though it had incredible success and internship programs, and it was cut. I want to say in 2017, something like that. And there was some music therapy at the acquired brain injury rehab for a couple of hours a week. But yeah, there's some gaps there for sure.
Yeah, and just on that, there's a few questions here related to kind of, well, the two separate ones, so I'll ask them separately. But someone mentioned that their daughter was a musician and was in a near fatal car accident, leaving her critically injured. How can playing music help with her traumatic brain injury? What are the mechanisms at play here? So, as you said, where it may not always be available in hospitals, is it something that people can bring into their home for family members they may be caring for?
Yes. So if they want to work with a music therapist, there are music therapists that can be accessed through the CAMT website, which I had over here. And you can find a music therapist there, and they can come to your home or to the facility. And if somebody has incurred, oh, there it is. If somebody has incurred a brain injury from a car accident, most insurance companies will cover music therapy. Specifically, if the music therapist is trained as a neurologic music therapist, it's a specific training that music therapists can attain, and that is covered by most like private insurance carriers. So it is something that can be, depending on, yeah, and also for other diagnoses or reasons for referral, it can be covered by one's own private insurance if it's not accessible. And you could bring, like I've been brought into hospitals and LTCs and rehabs by the families, for example. So music therapists do that. And yeah, on this website here, the musictherapy.ca, you can find a music therapist. But I do want to give a shout out to Sunnybrook Hospital. They have 5 full-time music therapists that work in their Veterans Affairs unit. And it's just, yeah, fantastic to have such an incredible team of music therapists all working full-time there.
Wow, that is wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's great to know. We have time for probably 2 more questions. One, can music therapy be effectively used as a preventative measure? And if so, what are some of the most common mental health issues you see it helping address before they become more serious?
Yeah. So that was actually one of the motivations for my PhD work, was that people are not using, or just generally when it comes to mental health, we're not being proactive. We're not using preventative measures, and music is something easy to tap into for that. And so sorry, was the question specific to music therapy or just music in general?
Therapy be effectively used as a preventative measure?
Yeah. So reaching out to work with a music therapist, like in the study I did. So we invited all students at McMaster University not because they had a diagnosis or not because they were in crisis, but just because they're students. So as a preventative measure, come and check out this group music therapy. And as you can see from the results of the study I shared, it was very impactful. They had, significant reductions in their stress and anxiety, including the cortisol measures. And what were they doing? They were doing songwriting, lyric analysis, music listening with intention. So it wasn't any one aspect, although I think for each person, they probably have something they were drawn to more. So if you were working one-to-one with a music therapist, you would, you can curate, what's going to be best for that person in regards to managing their own mental health and practicing preventative measures.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And we'll take our last question now. Are there any training courses for caregivers on using music with long-term care, et cetera, for non-professional volunteer leadership?
Yes, yes, yes. So I love this because I do want to highlight that that's, when I was saying before about music therapy versus therapeutic use of music. And yes, we have music therapists and that's all great, but absolutely we need to learn how, like, non-music therapists need to also learn what are some ways we can use music in a meaningful way and with intention. And there is an organization called Music Cares, room 217. And if you check them out, they have curated a wonderful library of resources and trainings for members of the community to learn how to use music meaningfully and safely with loved ones with dementia. That is their main focus. They've also created some webinars and workshops and trainings outside of dementia care, but dementia care is their main aspect. And I just want to highlight, I recognize the time, but because what a lot of people don't realize is that you can use music and actually cause harm, right? Because music evokes memories, but sometimes memories that that person doesn't want to be having and swirling in their mind at that moment. And so it's really important that we are cognizant of how we're using music, particularly with someone who can't communicate, please stop. And so these trainings are great. So again, it's Music Cares, room 217.
That's great. I will try to include that in our follow-up email as well, just so people have reference to it. But I know that was our last question, but I saw a comment in the Q&A that I just wanted to share with you before we close for the evening. Someone said, "Thank you tons for the information. It was most informative. After all these decades, I never connected music therapy to the well-being of an individual. This seminar will have a lasting impact on my remaining years in life." So just wanted to share that with you from one of
Thank
our viewers
you.
tonight. So,
Thank you very much.
and on that note, that brings us to the end of our webinar this evening. I want to thank all our registrants for joining us online. And our next At Home at Mac event will take place on Thursday, January 30th. We actually have two events that day. One is at noon with alumna and registered dietitian Janelle Hutchinson. She will join us to discuss food and mood, the connection between diet and mental health. And at 7 p.m., we'll be joined by Terry Bennett and Gina Robinson from Max Money Center to discuss financial behaviors, understanding your relationship with money. So links to more information and registration will be included in a post-event email, which you'll receive later this evening, along with a link to the recording and a short survey where we hope you will take 2 minutes to fill out and provide some feedback from our session tonight. So thank you once again for everyone for joining us, and a special thank you to you, Rachael, for taking time out of your schedule to give this talk this evening to us. We really appreciate it. So thank you all and have a good evening.